Ladies, gentlemen, and raiders of all lark, this game has been out for right around a month now, and as we move into December, we approach our next larger update that we have on the roadmap. Not quite as big as a whole new map and all the stuff that we got with the Northline update a couple of weeks back, but it still promises new content, so we'll talk about what is to come, and then we'll of course talk about what the developers have been saying about the game in recent days as well, to give us a bit of an idea of what issues they are aware of, what they are prioritizing right now as far as we can tell, and then just any sort of hints towards the future of the game as well, with some pretty important information regarding the expedition. Starting off then, let's take a quick look back at the roadmap here. In December we have an update labeled as the Cold Snap update. This will include the Snowfall map condition. The only real concept of what this could be is like the few frame clips in the launch trailer of the game where it shows a snowy section outdoors, and this area just does not exist currently in the game, so the running theory is that this is a super small glimpse at this major map condition quite a bit early. As for what it does in particular, we of course don't really know. Logically, we can predict it's likely to be sort of like electromagnetic storm, meaning it probably will be able to affect multiple different maps instead of only one map like Hidden Bunker on Spaceport, which is locked to that map. I say this mostly because they're advertising it as like a big part of the December update. It would be pretty anticlimactic if it would just added one event to one map, and there's not really any reason that a blizzard can only happen in one place in the game world. As a result, there are a few things that we can try and predict, but this is all speculation, so take it with at least a couple of separate grains of salt. If it is on all the maps, or at least most of the maps, it's likely to work similar to the other most map major conditions, which are night raids and electromagnetic storm. No major map conditions have raider hatches active, and all of them give double trial points, so we can assume that that will be the case for Snowfall as well. Night raids give increased loot quality and increased blueprint drop rates. Electromagnetic storm, people are still sort of divided on whether they think this does actually give you increased loot quality in general, despite the fact that it doesn't claim to, but it definitely does have increased blueprint drop rates, so I would expect Snowfall to have one, if not both, of those factors as well. Aside from that, we can sort of logic out what a snowy map condition could be represented by, and my first immediate thought is about sound. This game relies so heavily on sound effects and hearing and listening for players or art or whatever is just in your sort of area, as it's your main source of situational awareness. Sound is super important in this game, and one thing that snow is really good at, especially fresh snow, is muffling sounds, making them quieter. So I can absolutely see them making it so all outdoor areas are covered in a fresh snowfall, and so this would make footprints basically silent as you're walking around. It would absorb a lot of the general sounds around the map as a whole, so it might just be quieter anywhere on the map while this is active. Past that, to add onto that concept, when you walk through snow, you of course leave very visible tracks, your actual footprints, so I wouldn't be surprised if the main sort of unique factor is that movement is nearly silent, but you always leave tracks behind you, which means that other players will be able to follow your path, and that is the perfect recipe for extremely tense raids where you're worried about other players being behind you constantly. Or another thing that one of my friends mentioned is, what if it makes it harder for you to regen stamina because of the weather and the actual just literal cold? And I think that they could do that, but that might be one step too far. As for the arc, I could also see them being able to justify either making the arc stronger or weaker based on the condition 2. It's sort of up to how they want to interpret it. You could argue that the cold and ice would slow down their mechanical parts and make them physically slower to move in every aspect, like an event that makes arc easier to fight. Or you could argue it does the opposite. Maybe it keeps them from overheating, which allows them to use more energy to achieve higher power for longer periods of time. Maybe it even does both. Maybe some arc are weaker, some arc are stronger. It just completely flips it in some ways. Overall, I think the highest likelihood is the sound and footprints part. I think that is very predictable and would very much fit the Snowfall concept. The other stuff that I've mentioned there is just sort of guesswork, really. We don't really know. That said, it's worth noting that each major map condition seems to have a significantly heightened drop rate of one super rare blueprint. The Tempest blueprint is generally accepted to be easiest to find during night raids, Snap Hook during electromagnetic storm, Bobcat during locked gate, which is still out of the event rotation right now, but we'll be talking a bit more about that in a couple of minutes, and then the Vulcano being attached to the Hidden Bunker condition on Spaceport, which means it's likely that a new major map condition would have increased drop rates for a high rarity blueprint. If I were a betting man, I'd say that the highest odds would be the Deadline Mine blueprint, especially because the roadmap doesn't say they'll be adding new weapons, so it's not like it's likely to be a new weapon blueprint. Instead, we have the Deadline Mine, which is a new piece of incredibly strong utility added in patch 1.2. We have crafting materials that say they are used to craft the Deadline Mine. We know that the total list of blueprints increased when the item was added to the game, which implies a blueprint should exist for it. But while I have seen a couple of people claim through text that they have gotten this blueprint, I have still never seen a screenshot or a picture of any sort of actual proof of somebody owning the blueprint, or even just the ability to craft it that happens after you use the blueprint. This leads me to believe that it's just not available right now, and so it might very well be because something that powerful has its blueprint tied to this new major map condition that has not yet been added to the game, but that is fully just a theory of mine. Then we also have the Flickering Flames event listed here on the roadmap, and this is super unclear what it even means by the term event. The only thing that we've had so far that is officially labeled as an event in the game is the Breaking New Ground event, which was what originally unlocked Stella Montis, and then eventually led to just being this track of rewards that you get for gaining XP, so it is entirely possible that the Flickering Flames is just the next one of these types of things where you can get some minor rewards for free, and they want to keep them running pretty consistently. I could see that being a believable thing, and I think that's probably the most likely option here. I have also ever heard people suggest that it could be a new one of the minor map conditions instead, like Husk Graveyard or Matriarch or Harvester, as some people also do just call those events. But I don't think the developers have ever officially referred to those as events, it's always been conditions, so again, with that specific term being used, it's a bit vague what it will be, but that is my best guess. We've also got the Expedition Departure window, which starts about halfway through the month. We've got a new Raider deck being added as well, possibly coming alongside the Flickering Flames event, if that is working how I think it might, but we don't know for sure once again. Then there's going to be new quests added as well, which I have to imagine will be related to the Snowfall map condition, or it might even just be a continuation of our Stella Montis adventure after the event finishes, as we have the Stella Montis related event ending in a few days, and it feels like it should result in something, so perhaps that's where new quests would come from. That said, there's also some communication from the developers on a bit of a smaller level, specifically from community managers responding to occasional questions in the official Arc Raiders Discord. There are some things that feel like they are specifically avoiding commenting on or responding to, but there's plenty of stuff they do answer, so let's dive into what's been going on the last few days with this, and especially with there being a lot of communication about the Expedition project specifically, which is upcoming, so it's good to have as much information as we can get. Starting off with the Expedition related stuff then, we got confirmation that the skill points and stash space bonuses from partaking in the Expedition are going to be actually permanent. A lot of people were reading quite hard into this one line of text in game that says some rewards and advantages carry over to your next raider, lasting until the next expedition begins. This wording vaguely implies that you will need to take part in every expedition to keep those rewards, whereas this confirmation from a community manager seems to say otherwise, stating that these two specific rewards at the very least are going to be permanent after you've done the expedition moving forwards. We also know that the amount of skill points that you get from doing the expedition will be based on your stash value at the time of the expedition, but this message specifically points out that it's not just the literal items value in your stash, the raw items that you have saved, it's also going to include your currency, your wallet, your money, so if you have a massive amount of raw currency, then that will contribute to your total stash value. We also had people finally get a response to one of the biggest, most important questions about this expedition system. Will skill point increases stack with each expedition? Is it up to +5 skill points for each expedition you do, or is it just a one-time bonus? Could we eventually take every single skill in the skill tree if we do enough expeditions, or is the maximum amount just 5 more than current, which is 81? The current official response is that the PR team does not have that information yet. They will share more closer to the expedition window. What I find interesting about this is they didn't say that they won't be sharing yet, they said they don't have that information, which to me almost sounds like the team is still trying to decide one way or the other and just hasn't fully committed to that decision quite yet, but that could just be me overthinking and reading into the precise wording there, so take a grain of salt with that one. Past that then, we've got a response to the idea of savable preset loadout templates, which was just saying, that's a cool idea. This means it was probably reported to the rest of the team after they sent this message, but it also means that something like this is likely not already in development, or if it was, the response would probably have been quite different. We had someone ask when the locked gate event would be back on Bluegate, presumably because they want the Bobcat blueprint, and that seems to be the main source of that blueprint, and the response was no ETA right now. So likely it won't just randomly appear like tomorrow out of nowhere, we're probably going to be waiting for a patch day or two in the future before it gets re-enabled at some point. Then we had a separate question that asked quite similarly, but with more emphasis asking about the Bobcat blueprint part of things. This is the only direct response I have ever seen to a question about blueprints that are basically missing from the game, and that is worth noting. But it asks if the Bobcat blueprint is currently obtainable because nobody has found it outside of the locked gate, which isn't part of the game at the immediate moment. The response to this was, the team is looking into it, which could mean a bunch of different things because of the question that was asked. It could mean that they are looking into whether the Bobcat blueprint is dropping or not, meaning that perhaps it's not supposed to be so heavily tied to Lockgate, maybe it's supposed to be dropping but isn't, but it could also mean that the developer team is looking into locked gate, because they did also mention that. The response was quite vague, so the exact intention of it is unclear, but we do already know that locked gate is going to be fixed, it is going to come back to the game, so regardless, the Bobcat blueprint will be available again. Just the way that you read this response might adjust how you think that's going to happen. That just about does it for today then, everyone. A discussion about the roadmap for Ark Raiders moving into December and the updates that we know are coming for the game. My speculation and theories about what it all could mean in greater detail and what it might become in the actual game too. And then just talking about the various bits of communication we've had from the community managers for the game that give us a little bit of insight on what's being worked on and what is to come still. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and let me know your own thoughts on all of it in the comments down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.